Guys, today is Wednesday, so it's the day that we do our homework, and we're going to start by reading a passage called Abraham. I hope everybody's doing okay. Make sure you're checking your grades and your emails to make sure you're staying on top of your work. So, this is called Abraham. Abraham, a 12-year-old, 22,000-pound elephant, swam in the Ganges River for 5 hours before the giant pads of his feet finally touched land. His trainers with the Alcindi All Saints Circus and touring exposition would have been amazed and angry at the sight, but they were miles away at the time. During his years with the circus, Abraham had learned a total of 7 tricks, which included walking on a rubber ball, juggling dull machetes with his trunk, and using his tusks to toss a tiny acrobat 20 feet in the air. But Abraham refused to swim. This caused the elephant's trainers and owners no small amount of consternation. Daud Sammy Shabazz, whose great-grandfather started the circus with 3 monkeys and a black Russian bear in 1926, had spent more than 3 million rupees to build, maintain, and fill a translucent 700,000-gallon water tank, which he transported at additional expense to every town and village along the Ganges. Abraham was gentle and a show-off, a rare combination for an elephant, which made him the perennial crowd favorite of the show. It had been Sammy's plan to capitalize on Abraham's popularity by training him to become the first elephant in any circus in India that could juggle while swimming. The issue was Abraham's pride. Juggling machetes was fine, but there were some things Abraham refused to do for applause or salted treats, and swimming was one of them. Shabazz did not know his animal was capable of such thoughts, so he assumed the problem was stupidity on the part of the animal, the trainer, or both. The fact that his biggest, most popular, and most expensive to feed animal refused to go near any tank of water made Shabazz angry. "Enough," the Shabazz said to Pawan Mahiri, his lead animal trainer, as the 2 men boarded the river barge that carried the circus up and down the Ganges. "If you cannot get that animal into the tank by the time we dock in Mumbai, you can go back to where I found you, performing on the street with your little monkey." Later that night, as the barge puttered down the river, Abraham reached his trunk through the bars of his cage, searching for a clutch of hay. To his surprise, the gate opened wide. Never in his dozen years of captivity had any of his cages or pens been left unlocked. As always, Abraham was hungry, so he pushed forward, expecting to step onto the barge's wide wooden deck. Most nights his cage faced towards the center of the barge, but tonight the door was aimed not inward toward the boat, but outward toward the river. When Abraham stepped outside, his right foot touched only air and then water. Abraham trumpeted loudly when he fell, but his head was already below water, muffling the sound. By the time he rose to the surface, the barge was already floating away down the river. He paddled after it, but the red and yellow heap grew smaller and smaller. Abraham stopped kicking, looked around, and saw a low rise of land far off to his left. He switched directions. Keeping his head under water, he breathed through his trunk like a snorkel and paddled with his enormous legs. It took 5 hours. His legs were tired, his lungs burned when the pad of his foot finally brushed a rock along the bottom. Soon he could walk. He hurried up the bank and over a small hill. In the yellow sunrise light, he found before him a broad rice paddy with green bristles poking from the water. Abraham sunk his snout into the water and started sucking up all the rice he could eat. He grazed for almost an hour before a man appeared on a nearby berm. The man carried a long stick like the ones Abraham's circus trainers used to discipline him. By force of habit, training and fear, the elephant froze. The man was shouting, but he didn't use any commands Abraham could recognize. The man came closer and raised his stick to his shoulder. From the stick came a flash of light and a booming sound that scared Abraham. The elephant felt something hot hit his shoulder. The man took a few steps forward, raised the stick again, and Abraham felt another hot jolt, this time on his ribs. Abraham's hind legs jolted to life. He ran through the paddies, away from the man and his strange, powerful stick. Abraham ran and ran. He felt slow, his belly sloshing with a heavy load of rice and water. Eventually he came to a clump of trees surrounded by tall grass. Abraham fell asleep before his body even touched the ground. It was morning again when Abraham woke. He heard the grass around him swishing, felt the ground beneath him quiver. Then he heard an elephant's trumpet. It was loud and close. He heaved himself into his feet and found himself face to face with a big male elephant. It stood a foot taller than Abraham. Abraham walked backwards, taking in the sight of his tall male. He had always been the only male elephant in the circus and had never been challenged like this before. He had to look up at the wizened, wide elephant eyes, but as Abraham looked his challenger up and down, he was surprised by what he saw. The taller elephant looked ancient, but in fact the old bull was just 10 years old. Repeated stretches of starvation had left his skin wrinkled and loose on his ribs. His left tusk was broken for so many fights for dominance. Abraham, fed grain every day of his life and strong from all the balancing tricks, noticed all of this instinctively. His fear turned to anger and he stopped stepping backwards. He flared his ears and stomped the ground, making his strong leg muscles ripple. Finally he raised his head and trumpeted. It was the loudest sound he had ever made in his life. The old-looking alpha male stood his ground, but he did not charge. Instantly Abraham knew he'd won. The wild one stomped and brayed and huffed. Eventually he looked away and walked off towards the river. Two young females stepped toward Abraham and sniffed. Abraham's first few months as a lower alpha male in the herd's complex leadership structure was patchy. Whenever he saw a human, he would freeze in place. This annoyed the other elephants, who mostly ignored the humans and bumped into their big new friend every time he stopped, suddenly. But Abraham understood humans in ways the herd did not, and this became a major advantage. His understanding of humans became his biggest contribution to the herd. Abraham was able to find food in places none of the other elephants had ever thought to look. One day a few dozen elephants tried slurping up the last stalks of rice from a paddy that had already been harvested. Some were growing testy from hunger. The dry season had been especially hot and long, and many of the grasslands the herd traditionally grazed were yellow and barren by the time they arrived. As the others scrounged for whatever rice they could find, Abraham noticed a few huts rising along the berm. He walked to the closest hut, which smelled of grease and cooked lentils. He reared up on his hind legs and brought his front feet crashing down onto the hut's mud walls, which crumbled. Lifting the corrugated metal roof off with his trunk, he found fat, woven stacks of beans, lentils, and stalks. Abraham ate for a few minutes, then stepped aside to make room for some babies. One baby ate so quickly she made loud snorts. The mother elephant swung her trunk around and patted Abraham on the head. The wet season came, and then the dry. Abraham never became one of the herd's lead alpha males. He was too strange, and his behavior around humans made the other elephants nervous. Even though he was relatively short, Abraham was strong and fast, and he retained the graceful movements of a practiced dancer. The female elephants liked this, and during confrontations with humans or other herds, the different groups of male all competed to recruit Abraham to their team. Soon, Abraham had a mate and baby elephants of his own. One morning, the herd was standing on the banks of the Ganges. Abraham watched his youngest offspring use the trunk to shoot his sister with water when he noticed a red and yellow barge motoring slowly upriver. There were humans on the deck of the barge, and they looked at the herd but did not point. They did not seem to recognize any of the elephants standing there. Abraham felt the urge to stop grazing and stand motionless. He felt some fear too, but he could not remember why. Sensing a fresh patch of grass beside him, Abraham turned his back to the barge and ate. Number 1. Who is Abraham? A trainer. B, an elephant. C, a rice farmer. Or D, a circus ringmaster. And remember, you're going to put these into gray cam once you're finished. Number 2. What trick did the trainer want Abraham to do? A, balance a ball while standing on his hind legs. B, juggle dual machetes with his trunk. C, use his tusks to toss a tiny acrobat 20 feet in the air, or D, juggle while swimming? Number 3, Shabazz assumed he wouldn't do the trick for what reason? A, Abraham was frightened. B, Abraham was stubborn. C, the trainer was not talented enough. Or D, Abraham was stupid. Number 4, what unusual character trait is attributed to Abraham at the start of the story? A, prideful. B, obnoxious. C, foul. Or D, spiritual. Number 5, how long does it take Abraham to swim to land? A, 1 hour. B, 3 hours. C, 4 hours. Or D, 5 hours. Number 6, how does Abraham change in the story? A, he was afraid of performing, then overcomes his anxiety. B, he was afraid to swim, then decides to go into the circus tank. C, he was unfamiliar with humans, but later learns their ways. Or D, he was trained as a performer, then escapes into the wild. Number 7, Abraham's life in captivity was very different from that of his wild peers, as he learns when he meets the wild elephant male. What evidence supports this? A, Abraham's fear turns to anger when he meets the wild elephant male. B, the wild elephant male looked young, but was actually 20 years old. C, Abraham was healthy and strong, while the wild elephant was starved and damaged. Or D, Abraham raised his head and trumpeted, whereas the wild elephant stood his ground but did not charge. Number 8, what strong emotion does Abraham feel when he looks closely at the bull elephant? A, fear. B, anger. C, jealousy. Or D, curiosity. Number 9, based on the story, how did Abraham adjust to life in the wild? A, Abraham adjusted to life in the wild very easily. B, Abraham found it very difficult to adjust to life in the wild. C, Abraham was unable to adjust to life in the wild. Or D, Abraham adjusted to life in the wild with some difficulty. Number 10, what is this passage mainly about? A, the life of an Indian villager. B, the story of an escaped elephant. C, the life of an Indian animal trainer. Or D, the history of the Al Sindhu All Saints Circus. Number 11, read the following paragraph written from Abraham's point of view. The man came closer and raised his stick to his shoulder. From the stick came a flash of light and a booming sound that scared Abraham. The elephant felt something hot hit his shoulder. The man took a few steps forward, raised the stick again, and Abraham felt another hot jolt, this time on his ribs. Based on the description above, what kind of stick was the man really holding? A, a club. B, a sword. C, a spear. Or D, a gun. Number 12, why is the setting important to the plot? A, it was in a region with wild elephants. B, it was in a highly populated region. C, it was in a tropical climate. Or D, it was at a time of high growth in humans. Number 13, what was Abraham trained to do when he saw a human? A, bend down so they can ride him. B, charge in attack mode. C, defend himself. Or D, stand still. Number 14, at the end of the story, how can you tell that Abraham is now a wild animal? A, he attacks a human. B, he turns his back to the barge. C, he becomes the alpha male of the herd. Or D, he avoids the humans in the villages. Number 15, choose the answer that best completes the sentence below. Abraham never became one of the herd's lead alpha males. He was too strange, and his behavior around humans made the other elephants nervous. Blank, the different groups of males all competed to recruit Abraham to their team because he understood humans. So the word you're going to fill in, is it A, consequently, B, however, C, in summary, or D, moreover? Okay, now we're going to read about Kwan's crusade. Champion skater Michelle Kwan shares her story in the name of the United States. Michelle Kwan has a new pair of shoes to fill, and they aren't ice skates. Beginning this year, the figure skater champion will travel around the globe visiting schools to speak to young people about the values of the U.S. Kwan, 26, in November of 2016, accepted the new challenge to help improve the nation's image abroad. That is when U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice appointed her the first American public diplomat. A diplomat is a person who represents his or her country abroad. According to Rice, many children in other countries are exposed to negative messages about the U.S. As an envoy or messenger, Kwan will share her own life experiences and successes. Like so many Americans, Michelle Kwan has a unique personal story, one that has captivated people everywhere, especially young people, Rice told WR News. The daughter of Chinese immigrants, California-born Kwan won her first world figure skating title when she was 15. An immigrant is a person who comes from another country to live in a new country permanently. In total, Kwan has won 43 championships, including an Olympic silver medal in 1998 and a bronze medal in 2002. I am honored to accept this appointment and to serve my country, Kwan says. As an athlete, I've always been proud to represent the U.S. around the world. Being able to do so in this new position is very special and meaningful to me. Number 16. Which of Michelle's characteristics do you think will be a benefit when she speaks to others in foreign countries? A, her ability to work hard. B, her determination to succeed. C, her respect for the U.S. Or D, all of the above. Number 17. Since Michelle's parents were immigrants to the U.S., their personal characteristics probably include A, giving up easily, B, speaking negatively about the U.S., C, helping their daughter achieve an American dream, or D, determination to have Americans immigrate to China. Number 18. What does the author mean by saying that Michelle Kwan has a new pair of shoes to fill and they aren't ice skates? A, Michelle's foot grew and she had to wear a new shoe size. B, Michelle will wear high heels. C, Michelle has a new job giving speeches in foreign countries. Or D, Michelle will visit foreign countries and criticize the U.S. Number 19. Among Michelle's Olympic achievements, she has won A, gold medal, B, a silver and a bronze medal, C, a silver and a gold medal, or D, 2 bronze medals. Number 20. What was Michelle trying to achieve in her travels? A, another medal, B, improving Americans' image abroad, C, improving her language skills, or D, achieving more fame. Keep in mind you're going to put your answers in gray cam, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Miss Burke, Miss Hampton, or Miss Burkett.